You kind of find that workaround within that, and you'll find those cases, within that, and that's ultimately what stops the kind of the you putting the sort of like turbocharger on your company vehicle because you have these foundational things
Mhm.
which don't work. Um, and years ago, when I used to talk about this, yeah, years and years ago, back in the day, I used to have this um, performance car, hot hatch.
Mm.
I used to have a Ford RS Turbo. It was built 1989, so I'm showing my age, and I ran this in the 80s. And this was the RS Turbo Mark 9. Sorry, Mark 2. The Ford Escort Mark, I think it was a Mark 4, but Mark 2 RS Turbo. Now, Ford did a great job with these cars. The RS Turbo is a classic car. I mean, you can't buy one now for under 30,000 in the UK if it's in mint condition. They're wonderful. I still see them and I still get that sort of, I want one of those to put in my garage and drive on a summer's day feeling.
Mm.
So Ford bought these cars out, but what they did was they took the standard car, the
Mm.
standard Ford Escort from the 80s. They put on a nice body kit with a spoiler and a splitter and side skirts, and they put vents in the bonnet, and they put in racing seats, and a nice custom interior and all of the rest of it.
Mm.
And then they got the standard engine, which was back in the day probably a 1.3 liter
Mm.
CVH block engine,
What's that? The
and they
V's?
upgraded that to a 1.6 liter engine, and then they bolted a turbo on top of that. So they
Is
took the
that a
standard
V4 or
car of
V6 or
80 brake
V8?
horsepower
Mm.
to nearly 200 horsepower. The one thing they didn't do
Mm.
was change the brakes. Now, that's a this is the kind of the point that I'm alluding to is kind of like you make all of these upgrades, but you forget about the fundamental thing.
Mhm.
The fundamental thing of this in the car's case, the stopping power, which
Mm.
is, you know, equally as important as the acceleration. But what I think happened was I think they spent so much money on the acceleration, they forgot or ran out of money to do the braking
Mm.
side of it. And I think that when you're moving forward as a team, as an organization, as a company, those things must run in parallel, you know. And I think that is the paradox that we live in now, where people want to race forward, but the foundational kind of stopping point isn't there.